Thank you for joining the Reverend Dr. Sean Michael Greener, radio host, national pastor, author, and speaker for Sundays with Dr. Sean. Hold on tight. Here comes the truth.
Hello. How are y'all? Hey, Mr. Neil, thank you for joining. Let me know how it sounds. I'm using a different mic setup, as you can see here. And I don't know. I've never used it before, so I don't know. So let me know if there is any sound, because if there isn't any sound, I have a backup plan. But I was trying this just to see how it worked, and hopefully it's working. It would suck if it doesn't, because this is easy. The other way's easy too. But welcome. Collision of Faith and Politics is normally what we do on this channel, but we are today following our series of NOTFlix, Season 1, Episode 13. So I told you yesterday, also Spreaker is open. Thank you for joining us. The Spreaker app is free of charge at no cost or obligation to you. You can follow me there. Also, our book, I'll put a link to my book, which is this one. I have another one over there. Excellence Killed the Church, How Mediocrity. So if you search me on Amazon, you will find that book. And then my most recent book, which happened to coincide with the COVID-19, Chinese Communist COVID-19 crisis. So, Mr. Neil, I don't know if you can type, if you're hearing me, or if you could let me know if you can hear me, that would be super great, because I have no way of knowing. Anyway, all that said to say this, the book is, people are picking up the book. I really appreciate it. Mr. Neil picked up a whole bunch of copies, one for each of her hotel rooms, or shacks, they call them, little cottages that they have down there. Awesome. Hopefully it sounds good. Thank you for that report. You are now hired as my sound technician. Not really. You're a rocket scientist, for real. But I'm not going to hire you to be my sound technician. So, and plus, it doesn't pay anything. So, what are you going to do? That would be a big waste of your time. Thank you, Miss Linda. Thank you for joining us. I was thinking about you the other day. Also, real quick, remember to pray for Peggy, my friend Peggy, battling breast cancer. Also, I have several friends that are fighting cancer, but Wendy and then several others are fighting it. So I'm really, really hoping and praying for them every day. I'm praying for the best for them, best outcome. They're all amazing people. So, and you all know people that are struggling with challenges and all that. And we're to pray for them on a daily basis. Worst thing I think you can never do is tell somebody you're going to pray for them and then you don't. So that really gets in my crawl. All that said to say this, there's a lot to cover here. As I said yesterday, I think I was on yesterday, I have to move pretty quickly. As to the time, some folks have sent messages saying, hey, could you just pick a time and stick with it? Or why don't you just pick a time and stick with it? Technically, I can do that. I can schedule shows. I can do all those things. But physically, I can't do it, unfortunately. I wish that I could, but I physically can't. Just can't do it. I never know how well I'm going to be at any given time. Today, woke up and the landscaping arm of the construction company next door, building a house next door, they cut our fiber optic line. That was just put in the ground. So that's a big dollar. Oops. And so that had me hard down for no internet at all. Really nothing, because we stream everything. So everything in our house runs off the internet. Anyway, that being said, I have to give props to AT&T. AT&T got out here so fast, and they just put in a new line. It was incredible. Tested it, checked it. Good to go, Mr. Greener. Good to go. And off they go. Amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Some over here have sent me a message saying, hey, what's it like there? Is it pretty? It is gorgeous today. I think we have 3 days of rain. I was actually feeling well enough today that I actually mowed my lawn. And I'm real proud of that. So that was a big thing. And really awesome. I get a great sense of pride and satisfaction out of that, finishing that up. So anyway, did that and I'm fine. I've already drank 34 ounces of water. I have another 34. I'm going to drink that. I'm already a quarter into that. And so we're good to go. Going to be fine. So it's a beautiful day here. Rain for the next 3 days, I think, which is okay because my lawn needs it. But we're just happy to be alive. Today's a great day to be alive. A lot of bird activity out. If you could just see what I see, it's just incredible. I'm seeing out into the Sound, and there's yachts going by and huge sailing boats and different kinds of motorboats. But now there's this little rubber dinghy. It's the darndest thing you've ever seen. There's this little rubber dinghy out there, and they fashioned a little covering. I don't even know what it is. And they got a little motor on the back, and they're kind of tootling around in there, looking for a place to fish. They've got fishing rods. I can see that, but it's a little tiny boat. And it's, hey, Wendy, I just mentioned you. We're just asking people to pray for you. So, hey, Bobby, how you doing? Frank, Cheech, you're missing the snow in Cleveland. No, I'm not missing. No. I'm not missing any snow. Chris did yard work up to a month. I know. I remember. I used to talk to him. Sometimes he would call at like 3 a.m. Chris Cahalan, my brother, who is going on to his reward. Linda, who is listening now, is his mom, beloved mom. And sometimes he would call me, even right up near the end, in the wee hours of the morning. And we would have the most powerful conversations for hours. If he was lucid and he felt well enough to talk, he'd just call. I told him, call me anytime. And so we would, and it was wonderful. What a blessing. What a blessing. Hey, Lynette, thank you for joining us. And Ralph, I appreciate you joining us. But Lynette takes great joy, by the way. She's my sister-in-law, but really she's my sister, in taunting me. She knows what I'm talking about. It was pineapple upside down cake. Yeah, y'all ever have that thing? I don't know if there a name for it. Hey, David, how are you? There's a name for it. I don't know what the name for it is. It's scalloped potatoes, real cheesy, and ham. My mom used to make that. It's so good. It's like a casserole sort of thing. I don't know. She used to make pans and pans of it. Lynette made that and sent me pictures of it. I could about smell it. Next thing you know, Lynette's going to be sending me pictures of steamed crabs, and that's really going to push me over the edge. So I'm jonesing for crabs big time. So anyway, but there's all that. There's one other thing I wanted to say at the outset, and I can't remember what it is. Please, if you've purchased my book, please go to Amazon and leave a review. If I could just tell you, I'm a top reviewer on Amazon. Most of you didn't know that. I test products for them. And I'm in this special program and all that because I'm special. And in this program, I have come to learn how important reviews are. That's how I got in this program. I just wrote reviews on stuff that I bought. And I wrote them from the perspective of, hey, hard-earned money people, there's people out there that would love to know. I looked at the reviews, and so some of them were stupid. They were like people trying to develop a film career or something, or a social media influencer or whatever. That was never my objective. My objective was to write a review that people could follow and say, hey, you know what? That's a good review. And so I became, out of millions of reviewers, I think last time I checked, I was 10,000, which you might say, well, 10,000, that's, but in the Amazon numbers, the big giant numbers, that's huge. So I get nothing for that, but hey, thank you for joining. Appreciate that. It's either Greg or Amanda, I'm not sure which, but thank you, whichever one it is, for joining. So if you've bought the book, please leave a review. That would be huge. Also, click on follow, like, whatever, DrSeanGreener.com. Twitter is @TheNinjaPastor. Instagram @TheNinjaPastor. Sell my work at StillLivingPhotography.com. Most of you don't know. Maybe you do know. I do photography. And then I have another website too, but it's all on the thing, wherever. Anyway, so let's get started. I hope all of y'all are well. I really do. So what was the book of Job? Job, Job. The book of Job. Moses wrote that book. It was the first book written. And a lot of people don't realize that, but it's true. It was the first book of the Bible, first book written. And I think that's pretty cool, quite frankly. It's really, really neat. The date of writing was approximately 2000 to 1800 BC. Kind of at the beginning. Number of chapters, 42. 42 chapters. I'm not going to say that the book of Job is a particularly easy book to read, but it is a book you must read, especially if you think you got it tough. To whom was this book written? The Hebrew people and all nations that follow. Remember, I've been promising you. People have been sending me messages like, holy moly, I know, I'm touching my face. You know why? Because I can. Guess what I do? I wash my hands 100 times. I did that before this whole corona business, but when I get up from here, I'm going to wash my hands again. But I touch my face and my beard. You know, it's what I do. I'm going to do it again. Anyway, a lot of y'all have been sending me messages saying, Dr. Sean, when is it not just going to be written to the people of Israel? Like, when does the Bible start applying to us? Well, it all applies to us. It's just we aren't the audience. For most of the books that have happened before now, we aren't the audience. We always think we are the audience for everything. We think that we must be who the person is talking to. That's not true. That's not who. We can learn from that conversation. We need to learn from that conversation. It's important to know about that conversation and heed the warnings and understand what's going on there. But that wasn't written to us. Could be for us, but it's not to us. So, the Hebrew people and all nations that follow. So people have been asking me, when is it going to get to us? Here's your sign. So here it is. The purpose of the writing. And listen, right now, I'm never excited about anybody suffering. I have a tender heart for people. If you're hurting somebody, I'll kill you in a heartbeat. Won't lose a minute of sleep over it. Hey, Jason, how are you? I won't lose a minute of sleep over it. Doesn't bother me. If you're hurting somebody innocent, you're a goner. And it won't matter to me. But when people like Chris Cahalan and my buddy Eric, lifelong friend since kindergarten, Eric, I took care of Eric the last 3 years of his life. And I can tell you, when people like that die of cancer at that age, I'm broken by it. My heart is broken by it. And how many stories? You guys know how many stories of people who are wonderful people and they get these dreaded diseases or this horrible thing that happens to them or a family all gets killed and my heart breaks for them. It absolutely does. So the question that is addressed here is, why do the righteous suffer and the evil prosper? Now couldn't be better timing for this. Look, from a political standpoint, the name of my show and blog and all that is The Collision of Faith and Politics. So you know where I am. Collision of Faith and Politics. So I call it how it is. I probably connected on a phone connection. I hope that's all right. Anyway, President Trump's the first guy not only to acknowledge it out loud, but also do anything about it. And I'm praying to God that the other nations that are dealing with this coronavirus, they are coming to understand that China really, really was really behind this. Hey, Nancy Clay, how are you? Tell Mark I say hey and I love you. Love you, love him. Good people. And so for me personally, I'm so thankful. I'm so utterly thankful to God that the president is who he is. You may not like how he talks. You may not like how he puts things, results, getting it done. Anyway, enough of that. This book answers the burning and enduring question, and it addresses what authentic and, more importantly, faith which is tested looks like and lives like and maybe dies like. Hey, Miss Carol. And maybe dies like. Let me read this for you again. This book answers this burning and enduring question, and it addresses what authentic and, more importantly, faith which is tested looks like and lives like and maybe dies like. Sometimes the greatest people of faith, you know it. Miss Carol knows it. She lost 2 great people of faith, her dear husband and her son. Listen, there's great people of faith that have just died. They've died, or the dreaded disease, or they were killed in an accident, or they were killed maliciously, any of those things. Many die because of their faith. Because of their faith. Sometimes it goes south in a big way. Sometimes we die while attesting to the faith, while standing for the faith, while contending for the faith. We live, and sometimes we die. And it is powerful. Really, really powerful. I want you to understand that. That's an important thing. Remember, I talked about several episodes ago, and probably since, that if a preacher stood up in the pulpit or wherever, on stage, whatever they call it nowadays, and he said to you, he or she said to you, you do this, you place your faith in Christ, life's going to be easy for you. You're going to have all kinds of abundance, you're going to have all kinds of this and that and other thing. They were lying. Some people do find abundance, and some people have it in a big way. In a big way. It's a huge, big thing. It's awesome. And then sometimes some people don't. I know people right now who are people of incredible faith that toil away. Man, they are struggling every day of their life. Every day of their life. Through no fault of their own, they are struggling. And yet their faith is unwavering in a sovereign God. Listen, I want to read some things to you. First, and first and foremost, you need to understand that these are important foundational understandings, right? Foundational understandings to understand what Job endured. Now, I was going to write a whole bunch of stuff, and I've got more for you here. But I'm going to read some things to you. And I told you today, I warned you, today there's going to be more information coming at you than normal. Normally, they're not this long. So I want you to understand that I want you to have the whole picture. I want you to understand the power in these words. Not my words, but the words from God. And I want you to understand that God is real, and so is Satan. Hell is hot. You don't want to go there. Heaven is real. It's where I want to be. But for lots of reasons. Let's get to it. My personal summary. Now, this summary was longer than 250 words, so deal with that. Thought to be the first written book of the Bible. This is me talking. This is a beautiful account of Job in this book. Some of you wish I would just hold the book up like that, don't you? Those Facebook people. Spreaker, you don't get to see this, but I'm covering my face, which is probably why you signed up for Spreaker. Maybe not. Thought to be the first written book of the Bible, this is a beautiful account of Job and his family going through the most awful suffering I have ever contemplated without relief of death. Now, let me say this. I've been tortured. I have had my fingernails, my toenails pulled off. I've had wire cutters shoved under my toenails, turned like this, snip. I've been waterboarded a bunch of times. I've had all kinds of torture. I know about torture. Torture sucks. And in the midst of great torture, sometimes you wish to die. You say, just let this end with death. What a sweet relief death is, right? Now, myself personally, I have the mindset that if I'm being tortured by an adversary, everything I exhibit to them is trying to make them vulnerable to me. You say, wait, they're torturing you. Oh, no. I have a plan to kill everybody in the room. I'll be nice to you. I'll hug you. But I'll kill everybody in the room. Things go south. And I have a plan all the time to do that. If you're being tortured, your mind can never leave that notion, the understanding of where and what you are. That's one of the ways that you survive. Use all kinds of other mind tricks to do that. That said, sometimes pain, whether from torture or from sickness or from injury, any of those things, you just wish you could die. You just wish for the relief of death. I've been there a couple of times in my life, but rarely. I love being alive until God calls me home. Right? I've got stuff to do. And when he calls me home, it's time. Until then, I'm going to fight and work until he comes. Anyway, Job's faith is more than circumstance deep, as is the case with many Christians in the world today. I learned a very powerful and enduring lesson in my own suffering. If I wait for circumstances to bring me happiness, I might be waiting for a long time for something that may never come. especially given the climate of prosperity preaching and the postmodern emergent philosophy, focusing more upon what we can get from God rather than what we should give to God, our unremitting obedience despite our life circumstances. Trusting God and obeying God despite the worldly view of our lives is difficult, and no book better demonstrates this challenge than Job. In Job's life, everything seemed to be well, and wealth and family. It was congruent with everything. It was congruent with Job's reverence to God. It all fit in. It made sense. Here's a guy who reveres God. He loves God. He serves God. He worships God. And so it would make sense that he was prospered for that. God said, I see you and I love you. Here's some stuff for you because I know you'll take care of it. Trusting God and obeying God despite the worldly view of our lives is difficult, and no book better demonstrates this challenge than Job. Now, I'm going to read this sentence again because some of you who haven't bought my book yet need to write this down. You need to understand that sometimes it doesn't go this way, and Job would soon find that out. In Job's life, everything seemed to be well, and wealth and family was congruent with Job's reverence with God. You say reverence with God or reverence to God? With God. He communicated with God. God loved him. God adored him. God respected him. And Job returned the same to God. Job often made sacrifices, not just for himself, but also for his family. He made sacrifices not just to fulfill any duty that he had, but he did it on behalf of his family. Job was serious about his obedience and reverence for God, and unlike much of the church today, I've talked about, God is not the man upstairs. He's not the big guy in the sky. Jesus is my bro. I don't care for that. I don't care for it. I understand to some degree, Abba, Father, is daddy. Abba is daddy in Hebrew. So but there's a difference in that. My bro, my homie, all of that. I think it's disrespectful and it's irreverent. I'm not for that. I've been clear about that in my life. But Job was serious about his obedience and reverence for God, unlike much of the church today, because much of the church isn't reverent. They aren't reverent. Now, I don't mean to say, and I've talked about Bethel Church and Lauren Daigle and Casting Crowns and David Phelps and Gaither Vocal Band and all that stuff. I love all them. I love them. Love them. They lead me to the throne on a daily, and I'm going to read some stuff to you, stuff that particularly impacts me, and hopefully it will you. Job's friends came and sat with him silently, as in the Hebrew tradition, to grieve silently until the sufferer speaks. And what you have to understand, when you go read Job, because I know you're going to be hungry to read it, because it is powerful. When you go read Job, if you've never read it before, it talks about suffering. Such incredible suffering. This man went through so much loss, so much pain, so much awfulness, horribleness. Why? Because the devil said, he only serves you. He only worships you. He only honors you because you've given him all this. God says, you don't know my Job. Oh yeah? Well, why don't you let me test him, the enemy says. Satan says, let me test him. Let me take away some of that stuff from you. You'll see how quick he turns around. Well, guess what? He said, you can take anything from him. Hey, Miss Nancy, love you, girl. Thank you for loving me and for praying for me and supporting me through your prayers before God. I know that you put me before the throne all the time. I feel it. Miss Nancy was the one that prophesied that I would speak to oceans of people, and I have. So that said, I want you to understand that this man, Job, there was no greater man of faith in the world than Job. Job set the standard. He was the benchmark of faith and obedience to God. Job never got anything of these great things that he said, I did that. No, he was always on his knees before God, raising his hands to heaven, laying his face down on the ground, thanking God for everything. But then God said, look, You take away anything but his life. You can't take his life. You can take anything else away. Can't take his life. And Satan was sure that he would turn on him. He was sure that he would say, hey, you know what? This whole worshiping God thing, it doesn't turn out so good. The enemy said, I'll end your suffering. I'll prosper you 100 times. I'll blah, 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 blah. All these things. The devil, the devil is a liar, man. That's all he knows how to do is lie and deceive. To trick. To prowl about, seeking what he can destroy. Job didn't fall for it. Job followed God. So Job's in the sick bed, really what looked like the deathbed. And Hebrew tradition is you sit with them. You sit with them until they speak. You let them come to that point and speak. So they came and sat with him. When these men came and sat with the suffering Job, they knew, Job, he knew that they meant well. You ever know somebody like that? Now, see, I go visit people in the hospital. I don't do it right now because I'm not allowed. But I visit people in the hospital a lot. I have a lot of people who I minister to. And when a family member or they themselves end up in the hospital, their family or somebody calls me and they say, hey, would you come visit? Would you go visit so-and-so? And I'm happy to do it. I love doing it. Love it. Love it. I've had the pleasure of leading a woman dying of AIDS, Hep C, and liver, like 5 different types of cancer. And I was asked to go because, frankly, this church, the pastors didn't have time to go. They didn't want to make time to go. They didn't believe her story. They didn't believe the family story. Well, she's a prostitute, drug addict, has cancer, Hep C, and has AIDS. And they just wouldn't go. They have to answer to God for that, but they called me because they said, well, Sean will go. And I went. And this lady was 2 weeks from her death, from leaving this earth, and life had been cruel, so cruel to her. The nurses just didn't want to take care of her. They had shoved her into a ward that was no longer used. She was the only one on that floor, and she was lonely, and she was sad, and they didn't answer her calls. They would come twice a day. I have a bone to pick with that. They looked down on her for her past, for her appearance. She was skinny. She had almost no teeth. What little bit of teeth she had were rotted. And all of that came to her because she chose a path, but she was horribly abused as a child. She was put out at 14 years old. She set out on a path that was a horrible path. Some of her choosing, some not. And in the last 2 weeks of her life, she was shoved aside, where not even a pastor would come see her. So I went to see her. My family sat downstairs. We were having lunch in Pennsylvania, ironically, and this was in Delaware. And so we went there, and my family stayed downstairs, and I went up there, and I looked, and I couldn't find anybody on this floor. So finally, I found a nurse. I walked all the way down the hall. It was dark. They didn't even have the lights on. Went down there, and I talked to her, and I said, hey, is there a lady here by this such and such a name? Yeah. There's somebody here by that name, but she's no lady. I said, okay. Can you direct me where she is? And they said, you better don up, which means put on your PPE. So, okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I get down there and I go in to see this lady, and she was a skeleton. I mean, it was horrible. She was wide awake, though, but she was a skeleton. She was all marked up, and, she was hard to look at. I'm going to be honest. But I prayed before I walked in that room. I said, Father, let me see your child. Don't let me see what evil has done to your child. Let me see, show me the vision of your child. And he did. So I went and I sat next to her, and, we talked a little bit, and I said, so tell me your story. And she told me her story, and it was horrific. It was horrific. Listen, I've seen some of the worst places on the planet. I've been in the armpit of the universe. And I have personally, as a police officer and in other careers, been exposed to the worst things on earth. And I've seen people that you just think, oof, wow. And you wonder how they could survive. And you know what? I listened to her story and I said, how do you feel about all that? And she looked at me incredulous and she said, what do you mean, how do I feel? Nobody cares about how I feel. I said, God does. I do. How do you feel about all that? She goes, I've wasted my life. My life, that's why the nurses want nothing to do with me. I said, well, it would help if you didn't cuss at them. You know, there's a step. Catch more flies with honey type of thing. And then, but then I said, you know, how do you feel about all this? I mean, this is where you are. This is your life, and it looks like this is the end of your life. And she said, I've made a mess of my life. I got no family coming to see me. Nobody will come see me. I'm sitting here wasting away, and I won't matter when I die. I won't matter. Nobody will care. I don't even know where they're going to bury me. And I said, you do matter. I said, do you understand that your tears have been caught in a bottle? The Bible tells us that God keeps an account of your tears, and he puts them in that bottle, and he knows, and that not even a sparrow falls from the sky that he doesn't care. And how much more important are you? Yes, you have led a rough life. But in a moment, God can redeem you, redeem your life, save your life. Not here on earth, but I mean, he can save you from your sins, your hurts, your habits, and your hang-ups. He can save you. And when you close your eyes the last, the first thing you're going to see is the face of Jesus. She goes, he'd never do that for me. I said, listen, your face is what Jesus saw on the cross. Your name is what was written in blood on that cross. He did that for you. She goes, nobody would do that for me. I said, he would, and he did. I said, here's the thing. He's not dead. He's alive. And yes, your time here on earth has been rough. Some your own fault, let's be honest. And some foisted upon you by people that were mean and horrible and evil and representative of the devil. But you don't have to end that way. I said, do you believe there exists a God, the God? She goes, well, I don't think you can look around and not see God, but I don't think he cares anything about me. Why would he? I've been disgusting. She used that word for herself. I've been disgusting. I'm disgusting now. And I said, he doesn't see you as disgusting. He sees you as his child. His one lost lamb. And he wants you to come home. Would you like to know how to go home? And she said, I would. And I said, then you pray this prayer in your own words and in your own way. Do you acknowledge that you're a sinner, that you've done wrong things, that you have hurts, habits, and hang-ups? Yes, I do. I know that I do. It's obvious that I do. Do you acknowledge that you can't save yourself? That only a greater, higher power, the greater, higher power, the greatest, highest power can save you? Yes. Do you acknowledge that he sent Jesus, his son, to live a perfect life and to die on the cross and to be in the grave for 3 days and to gain victory over the grave just so he could save you? I am here to tell you. Up until this point, she wasn't crying. She wasn't. She was still hard and somewhat in disbelief. But then in this moment, tears started streaming down her face. And I said, pray that prayer. Include those things. Talk to God. He is waiting to hear from you. He's been waiting so long to hear your voice. Call his name. And I've been privileged to have over a decade and a half of seminary and divinity school training. And I've been privileged to be in the presence of some of the greatest theologians the world has to offer. And I am telling you, I've heard some of the most eloquent, beautiful prayers. But that prayer, I can imagine the joy. The sound of angels singing. I can imagine how utterly beautiful her prayer sounded to the Heavenly Father and Jesus the Son. I will tell you, it was one of the most profound moments of my life. It was defining. And I looked down after she said amen. She asked me, what does amen mean anyway? And I said, it is so. So be it. And I said, guess what? You're now my sister. And you're going to join me in heaven. Actually, I'm going to join you because by the looks of things, you're going to get there before me. You're going to get the lay of the land, and he's going to fix every hurt, every sorrow, every broken promise, everything. He's going to fix it. And I'll see you when I get there. And this body that you're in now won't be the body that you have then. You'll be redeemed physically, spiritually, and emotionally. The biggest toothless smile came over that woman's face. And I looked down. And I was holding her hand. And my tears were falling on our hands. And I knew God would take care of me, that he would protect me from whatever would befall me as a result of potentially being contaminated. I left there and I walked down to the nurse's desk and I said, you don't know who I am, but I now know who you are. And I now know who she is. Treat her like a queen. She'll treat you better, I promise you. But treat her like a queen. And if you don't, I'll be back. She died 2 weeks later. And there was nobody to claim her body but Jesus. In fairness to these men, many of us would approach a friend in great suffering and ask them if they have any unconfessed sin. That's what they did. These men came and sat with the suffering Job. Job knew that they meant well, but they didn't do well. Do you have any unconfessed sin, they said. What wrong have you done to bring this upon you, God's wrath upon you? God rebuked Jacob's friends, and in the end, Job's friends, and in the end, Job was doubly restored. I can only imagine how much deeper his relationship is with God, that he so devoutly obeyed, having come through this crucible of faith. In the book, when you get the book, I'm going to give you some links to some things. I'm telling you, they're powerful. They're resources that you will find incredibly powerful. These are some that stuck out to me. Some I wrote and some other people wrote. And you can get all of that stuff when you buy the book. It's only $7.99 for Pete's sake. The Job in the Bible was severely tested, though he was blameless and upright and an extraordinary man who feared God and shunned evil. That's in Job 1:8. In other words, Job had wisdom and understanding, and he said to man, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to shun evil is understanding. That's Job 28:28. A wise man fears the Lord and shuns evil, but a fool is hot-headed and reckless. Proverbs 14:16. God's assessment and esteem of Job was very high. He was also a man who persevered a great testing. James 5:11. So he was tested, but what about Satan's goal? But stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. Job 1:11. Satan's goal was to get Job to curse God, and he tried to accomplish this through Job's wife when he said, "Are you still," and this is what she said to him, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." Thankfully, Job rejected her foolish words. God's limits on Satan. The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, everything he has is in your hands, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Job 1:12. God placed everything Job had into Satan's hand, but he prohibited him from laying a finger on Job himself. The second time God brought Job to Satan's attention, he states this: "The Lord said to Satan, very well then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life." Job 2:6. God allowed Satan to painfully afflict Job, but assigned a limit on him by commanding that he spare his life. Here's Job's first test. You know what? These are in the book. I don't want to read all these. I've been going and going and going. I don't want to take up all your time. These are in the book, and if you buy the book, these are going to be right here for you. But I want to read something to you. Remember Job in the Bible, how he passed his severe test? He remembered he was going to be okay. So will you, and so will I. This is a song that I frequently play. It's in my playlist, my worship playlist, and when I'm really struggling with my illness, I play this, and I play it loud. You're Gonna Be Okay by Jen Johnson. I know it's all you've got to just be strong, and it's a fight just to keep it together. I know you think that you're too far gone, but hope is never lost. Hope is never lost. Hold on. Don't let go. Just take one step closer. Put one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light in the darkness. You're going to be okay. I know your heart is heavy from these nights, but just remember that you are a fighter. You never know just what tomorrow holds, and you're stronger than you know. You are stronger than you know. Hold on. Don't let go. Just take one step closer. Put one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light in the darkness. You're going to be okay. Just take one step closer. And when the night is closing in, don't give up and don't give in. This won't last. It's not the end. It is not the end. You're going to be okay. When the night is closing in, don't give up and don't give in. This won't last. It is not the end. It's not the end. You're going to be okay. Adonai bless you and keep you. Adonai make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Adonai turn his face toward you and grant you shalom. Something sacred hangs in the balance of every moment. Every moment that you live, there are important things happening in the heavens. God is ordaining things that we cannot see. We can't conceive of them. There will be suffering here on earth. But every moment of suffering and every moment of joy is sacred. And in that, God is. My name is Dr. Sean Greener, and I'm here to tell you, today is a great day to be alive. God bless you.
Thank you for joining the Reverend Dr. Sean Michael Greener, radio host, national pastor, author, and speaker for Sundays with Dr. Sean. Hold on tight. Here comes the truth.